Welcome back, everybody. We're continuing with our series on Guard Your Health. My name is Dr. Shmuel Shields. I'm the author of a book called L'Chaim, 18 Chapters to Live By, and part of the talk today is from the book. So I just want to start off by saying that we are obligated to take care of ourselves and to do what we can to protect our health. Efforts are in man's hands, and results are in Hashem's hands. So, having said that, I want to talk today about the Mediterranean diet, which is kind of a misnomer. It's not really a diet, but it's a way of eating. It's a lifestyle for countries that border the Mediterranean Sea. For many, many years, they've been eating a certain way. And we have discovered there's been a tremendous amount of research that supports the health benefits to the Mediterranean way of eating. And some of the things that I think make the Mediterranean way of eating so successful is that, number one, it is sustainable, which means it's something you can stick with, because many dietary plans out there, and again, I've been a practicing nutritionist for many years, and in all the years that I've been practicing, I've never put anybody on a diet. Why? Because diets basically don't work. You may get some short-term results, but to maintain weight loss, you can't do it long-term on a diet. And I never really liked the first three letters of the word diet anyway. So having said that, what I like about the Mediterranean way of eating, or focusing on more of a lifestyle or eating for health, I think is a better approach. So I mentioned it's sustainable. What makes it sustainable? It doesn't exclude any food groups. Once you run into a situation where you're excluding food groups, I'm talking major food groups, not just staying away from candy and cake, but once you take carbs out of the picture, and you take things like beans and legumes out of the picture, and you take, even whole grains, which are part of the carbohydrate family, but even whole grains, once you knock that out of the picture, and once you take gluten out of the picture, you're not left with much to eat. And it's hard for people to sustain those kind of limitations in a diet. So what's beautiful about the Mediterranean, it is sustainable because it doesn't eliminate food groups. It's satiates, it's filling because it's made up of whole foods. Whole foods tend to have more of a filling effect. It's very hard to overeat a whole food item. For example, a processed food like potato chips or pretzels or cookies, a person could sit down and finish a whole bag or a whole box and not even feel like they did anything. When it comes to whole foods, very difficult to sit down and eat 6 apples, or to eat 4 or 5 sweet potatoes, or to polish off a head of cabbage. Very hard, because these foods have some of the amazing ingredients that Hashem put into them called fiber, which tend to have a filling effect in the gut, in the stomach. And it's a little bit hard to really abuse or overdo or overeat these types of foods. So because the Mediterranean is made up of whole foods, it satiates and it satisfies, our appetite and so on. And certainly it's affordable in the sense that because animal products are limited, animal products tend to be a little more costly. It tends to be a little bit more affordable also. So it does have a lot of benefits. And one of the main benefits to us are the health benefits. And I want to just give you a little feel for some of the health benefits. And again, this is based on decades of research. The Mediterranean way of eating is probably the most well-researched way of eating ever. And I just want to share with you some of the basics. Okay, we mentioned it's plant-based. It's high in fiber, it's high in antioxidants, which are basically nutrients that protect the cells of the body. It's also high in something called phytochemicals. These are basically chemicals that are found in many of the foods that we eat, many of the whole unprocessed foods that provide protection to the body, to the blood vessels, to the cells, to the brain, the eyes, and so on. So Research has shown that a high adherence to the Mediterranean way of eating is linked to a lower risk for mortality and chronic diseases. It also has an anti-inflammatory effect, this way of eating, because we're using certain kinds of foods that reduce inflammation in the body, certain kinds of oils, certain kinds of elements in the foods that have an anti-inflammatory effect. And many researchers today and scientists believe that the inflammatory process that takes place naturally in the body is one of the major causes of chronic illness and disease today. So anything we can do to reduce inflammation is going to be a good thing, and the Mediterranean way of eating accomplishes that goal. When it comes to something called metabolic syndrome, which is very prevalent in today's world, which basically means obesity accompanied by hypertension and also an elevated triglyceride level, the Mediterranean way of eating has been shown very helpful in reducing the risk of metabolic syndrome, and for somebody that already has been diagnosed with it, to basically control and reverse that syndrome. There are benefits to cognitive health, brain health, memory. Again, this is all backed by studies and research. You can certainly go online, Google it, look for the research on cognitive health and the Mediterranean way of eating. You'll find, you know, a number of studies and papers and things on that. The microbiome, the variety of friendly bacteria, healthy bacteria in the gut, is also supported through a Mediterranean way of eating. Longevity, there have been longevity studies promoting the Mediterranean way of eating, and certainly its ability to reduce the risk for heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and obesity has been significant as well. And even if somebody is already diagnosed with an illness like this or with a condition like this, many times the Mediterranean way of eating, you know, being consistent with this way of eating, can better manage these conditions and sometimes even reverse, you know, some of these types of conditions. Okay, having said that, I just want to give you some highlights today of the Mediterranean way of eating with some very brief explanations. But in my nutrition practice, I often, you know, direct my patients to this way of eating. I will adapt it, I should say, for each person's specific needs. So even the Mediterranean way of eating can and should be tweaked depending on the health condition and other factors that I might determine when I do an evaluation. So let me just give you the highlights so you'll have a better understanding of how it works. So what you'll find interesting is that, number one, many people feel a good meal plan or a healthy way of eating or a healthy diet has to be fat-free. It's not true at all. As a matter of fact, healthy fats are essential for good health, and even for the health of the heart, the blood vessels, the brain. We need a healthy amount of fats on a regular basis. So the Mediterranean way of eating is not a low-fat meal plan. Approximately 30 to 40% of the calories in the Mediterranean way of eating are from fats and oils. But the big difference is the fats and oils that are primarily part of the Mediterranean way of eating are healthy fats and oils, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I just want to share with you that the Eskimos have the fattiest diet in the world. They eat whale blubber and oils and fats from these kind of sea animals and fish and so on. And they have excellent cardiovascular health. So we can see that it's something about these healthy fats that promote healthy blood vessels and so on. Okay, so let's talk about some of the benefits to the, or actually just a little overview of what makes up a Mediterranean kind of meal plan, the kind of foods that are primarily being used. So whole grains, things like bulgur and barley and couscous, brown rice, spelt, whole wheat. These kind of unprocessed whole grains are somewhat of a staple in the Mediterranean way of eating, and they are part of daily eating. Obviously, we're not just sitting down to a bowl or a big plate of whole grains. It's part of the plate, it's part of the meal. Next, we have colorful fruits and vegetables are a mainstay. That's really a staple. You know, every day the meal plan is going to be very colorful. Think of the colors of the rainbow. Think of rainbow nutrition. In my book, I do have a chapter on rainbow nutrition, which talks about the benefits that come from every different color food that you eat. And if you are missing different colors in your diet, you could be losing out on certain antioxidants and certain phytochemicals, phytonutrients that only those colors have. So because it's colorful, you're getting a full array of these kind of phytochemicals and antioxidants and so on. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the fats and oils now, which I alluded to a moment ago. So probably the most significant form of animal protein that is going to be found in the Mediterranean way of eating is going to be from the ocean, because or from the Mediterranean Sea. That's what these countries border. So it's a natural resource for them, and therefore fish becomes somewhat of a staple also. Certainly it's selected far more often than other animal proteins. So fish, being rich in omega-3 fatty acids, is probably eaten a few times a week or more, possibly, in a Mediterranean plan. Followed by chicken. Chicken would be used much less often. Followed by red meat, which is probably used rarely. Now, coming back to those food groups for a second, the animal protein. Keep in mind that one of the Mediterranean principles is that it's plant-based. So even if you are using an animal protein, it's not going to be the main dish. It's not going to be a 16-ounce steak. It may be a few ounces of an animal protein, a few ounces of chicken, a few ounces of meat. And it's always going to be combined with a salad, or steamed or cooked vegetables, and so on. So if I had to sum it up right now, the animal proteins found in the Mediterranean meal plan are going to be the side dish, not the main dish. All right, so that's something, that's a very important point. And again, even when they do use poultry and meats, I'm assuming that better quality meats and poultry are used, ideally grass-fed beef or organic meat and chicken certainly would be better choices, and I think these things are probably or should be incorporated into more of a Mediterranean type meal plan. When I say grass-fed beef, cows are supposed to eat green grass. In today's world, most of the cows are fed cornmeal, and cornmeal is not the natural diet of the cow. So when they're fed cornmeal, you get an animal with more fatty tissue and less nutrients in the meat. Less iron, less omega-3, less nutrients. Whereas if it's grass-fed, you're going to get leaner beef, and you're going to get more of the iron and even more omega-3 and other nutrients that are there. So I just want to make you aware of that. Anytime we disturb the food chain, which we unfortunately have done a good job at, and we give animals foods that are not part of their natural way of eating, it affects the development of the animal and the nutrient makeup of the meat of that animal and so on. Okay. Other fats and oils that are regularly used in the Mediterranean meal plan would be nuts and seeds. Now, nuts and seeds, I know they're caloric, and many people falsely assume that they raise cholesterol levels. Just the opposite, they lower cholesterol levels. The oils and fats that are found in nuts and seeds have a lowering effect on cholesterol levels. And as a matter of fact, I saw a study once, or read an article a number of years back, that indicated that people that eat nuts 4 to 5 times a week have 50% less heart attacks than people that don't eat nuts at all. So there are many benefits to including this kind of food group in the diet. Again, moderation is always the key because of the caloric makeup of some of these food items, but in moderation they should be included, and they do add a healthy and essential source of fat to the diet. Keep in mind that fats and oils are essential. They're not luxuries. They're essential nutrients that the body needs. All the cell membranes, are made up of fats, and we need them. Okay, the other kind of fats and oils that are again included regularly in Mediterranean eating are things like olive oil, like an extra virgin olive oil, avocado, olives. So these kinds of fats and oils are regularly part of the Mediterranean way of eating. And again, these healthy oils coming from these kind of foods also have a cholesterol lowering effect and do support healthy cardiovascular system and even a healthy brain and healthy eyes and so on, especially omega-3 fats and oils. Okay, so those are parts of the Mediterranean way of eating. When it comes to dairy products, they are used moderately, but particularly cultured dairy products, like things like kefir, things like yogurt, and then some of the cheeses, things like feta cheese and other cheeses, are also part of the Mediterranean way of eating. But once again, the cheese or the dairy component here is not the main, it's not going to be a main dish. It's used more for flavoring as a garnish. Let's think of a Greek salad. You have a big green leafy salad with tomatoes and olive oil and maybe a little bit of feta cheese, an ounce or 2 ounces of feta cheese, to add a little bit of a protein value and to add flavor and things like that. So again, the way things are portioned is very important. So it makes sense from that standpoint. Okay, so that's the dairy group, and then eggs are used probably in moderation. Okay, and then they also make use of a lot of healthy spices, herbs, and seasonings, things like turmeric, saffron, garlic, oregano, basil, rosemary, thyme, nutmeg, cinnamon, cayenne, and even some fresh lemon juice are used in the cooking or as dressings and condiments and so on. And these various spices have their own array of health benefits. So again, that adds to the health benefits to the Mediterranean way of eating. When it comes to sugar, so all processed foods, whether it's white flour and sugars, are not part of the Mediterranean way of eating. Artificial sweeteners are not part of the Mediterranean way of eating. It's a whole food, plant-based meal plan. So what do they use for sweeteners? They may use a little bit of raw honey, barley malt, molasses, sometimes things like date sugar, which is just dates that are dried out and granulated into a sugar, coconut sugar. Basically, they use more natural, low glycemic sweeteners that are not going to spike blood sugar levels. But nevertheless, these are sweeteners, and if you are diabetic or have issues with things like this, you have to be cautious. This is where we would tweak the Mediterranean plan for you. It is tweakable. Now, what about after a meal? What about desserts? Desserts are part of the Mediterranean way of eating. That's what makes it so sustainable. People don't feel deprived. And if they do it right and it's planned out right, you can lose weight with this way, and you can have a healthy lifestyle and have a wide range of foods and different combinations so you don't get bored with your eating. But things that would make up desserts would be like maybe a fruit compote, a baked apple or a poached pear, dried figs or dates, or stewed fruits, or roasted nuts, roasted almonds, or maybe whole grain biscuits. So these are some of the type of things that would make up the dessert component of the Mediterranean way of eating. Okay, I think I've given you a brief overview of the Mediterranean way of eating. In our upcoming series, which is going to happen shortly after this, I am going to talk briefly in a little while on summer safety, summer health, healthy eating in the summer, and things of that nature. So we're going to do that shortly. If anybody has any comments or questions on these talks, you're welcome to contact me. The office phone number is 718-544-4036. Again, 718-544-4036. If you prefer to email us a comment or a question or anything else, rmshields, SHIELDS 62 at gmail.com. So rmshields62 at gmail.com. If anybody is interested in the book L'chaim, 18 Chapters to Live By, which is full of important information, it's available at our office, and you can contact us and we can tell you how to get a copy. Okay, thank you for listening, and we are going to continue with